First of all, it's a real honor to be here today. 4 years ago, was my first HCPP. I would never imagine being on stage, and especially not in these particular conditions. So yeah, thank you for being here, and thank you for HCPP for having me. So today I'll be talking about decentralized chat and commerce on the Lightning Network. Just a few words about me. I started programming at 7 and getting paid for making electronics at 16, and never stopped since then. You can read that, you can screenshot that if you want to read it later. And in the Bitcoin space, I created the Nodo project, which are hardware and hosted full nodes, and Host for Coins, which is an anonymous hosting service, VPS service. Yeah, and I'm trying to contribute to as many projects as I can. First, a disclaimer. I'm paid by the Sphinx Chat project for hosting a part of their servers and for consulting for them. But these slides were not altered by the creator of Sphinx. There is only one sentence from him, and everything else is from me. There will be a first part, technical part, a bit long, and the philosophical part a bit shorter, and then some closing statement, a very personal one. So there's that guy, Paul, who started the Sphinx project. This is an email he sent his wife in 2018 after seeing the creator of WhatsApp resigning from his job. And it says, onion routing of a Lightning Network, Sphinx protocol for private message, wallet app equals messenger. And that's pretty much the whole story about the Sphinx app. Few months later, I started proposing consulting services. I actually sold only one consultation, and it was to that guy. He booked his consultation 1 hour after I posted the tweet about starting this service. And I shouldn't even have accepted his money for this because I learned much more than he did for me. The guy, Paul, very interesting person, he's into keto, the diet. He made an app for mostly Americans. It has not many resources outside America, but so the Senza app is his app about keto diet. You can get coached and so on. And he also had a business of, you probably know the Amazon Mechanical Turk service. Basically, you can, through an API, submit jobs that will be executed by human people. For example, solving CAPTCHAs or analyzing pictures. And these two things are actually very closely related because in Senza, you can take a picture of the label of a food product you're buying, and it's trying like to analyze the composition, but sometimes the OCR doesn't work very well, so the picture gets submitted to Stackwork, which is his Mechanical Turk paid in Lightning service. And so you have some actual humans that will read the label and process the data. And what is funny about Stackwork is that basically most of the Stack workers, they are called like this, are in the Philippines. So you have some people like getting Satoshis over Lightning for making micro tasks in the Philippines for a ridiculous amount of money for the people who are submitting the tasks, but which are a considerable amount of money for the people who are executing the tasks. So it's a very humane project, actually. And recently he started, because you need a phone to execute the tasks. So recently, as part of your Stack work, you can get a free phone and a free phone subscription. So these people just get a free phone, free subscription. They do tasks and they can cash out to a Bitcoin wallet. And yeah, and the main issue was he needed a wallet. So he created Sphinx Chat also to be this missing piece. During this call, he, well, I think you need to, yeah. He showed me this demo. So this is running in the iPhone simulator on the Mac. It's just a chat app. It's nothing more, but there are some interesting additions in it. So inside the app, you can send messages which travel over the Lightning Network. It's not out of band, it's really payments which are carrying the messages. And you can make payment requests and payments. So you can just push a payment to someone using KeySend, I'll talk about it later. And you can send a regular Lightning invoice and just pay the invoice inside the app. You can also, of course, pay regular Lightning invoices outside of this ecosystem. So what's interesting is what is the tech behind this. This is how Lightning was initially designed to work. Person A sends an invoice to person B pays the invoice, and the payment is done. But there is so-called Sphinx send mode in Lightning. It's actually, this name is not very much used, and it's not related to the app name, but yeah, whatever. It's better known as KeySend, and with KeySend, when KeySend is enabled on the destination node, you can push a payment without an invoice. What's cool about this is that you actually don't need this feature to be enabled on the sending side, and you don't need it to be enabled on the routing nodes as well. So you can do KeySends between two random nodes which are enabled with KeySend, and in the middle, they don't have to know anything about this protocol because it's all in the TLV onion of the Lightning message. And in January 2019, Roastbeef made a patch for LND, which allows KeySend. This patch was only merged almost a year later in the mainstream LND. So a few months later, we met in San Francisco with Paul, and we made what any reasonable tech person does in San Francisco. We signed a napkin contract. Of course, you can see the details here. And that's how we started working together. In summer 2019, there was a very early version of this application. The relay, which is the piece that does the interface between the mobile app and the Lightning node, was in Python. So this is how the whole infrastructure looked. So for sending, they were just executing ln cli with the keysend argument. And there was a small issue because since keysend is not really like mainstream in LND at this point in time, there was no way to know that the payment was received. So the only way to do that was to enable debug level logs and have the relay read the logs of LND to detect the payments. And one thing also to know is that the only information about the payment that is in the logs is the amount. So that's how it worked. Morse code over Lightning payment amounts. Fast forward to Berlin in fall 2019 at the Lightning conference. The relay got remade in Node.js. The sending still pretty much the same, but over the API, so a little bit polished, but receiving still reading logs. And the encoding was better. Instead of sending Morse code, we were sending ASCII codes over Lightning amounts. So 1000 sats plus the ASCII value, only 7 bits. So, and the messages were capped to be very short because we were sending the message letter by letter. So each payment was one letter of the message. So you can imagine if you send a 30 characters message, Lightning is not exactly instant. And it required a patched version of LND because Keysend was still not merged in LND at that time. So yeah, we planned to enable 100 users in Berlin, then 50, then 20, then 10. And one of the reasons for that is this routing nightmare. With LND, there is a whole slide about this later. When you have node A connected to node B with a channel and B to C, node A at this point of time was unable to find a route to node C, even if it's obvious for anyone looking. And this is what we finished by doing. We did a full mesh of channels between all the 10 nodes. And it mostly worked. Of course, every time we were doing a demo to any investor, it didn't, but at least when we were testing it internally, it works. LND, so this is the issue. You try to query route or to send the payment from A to C, it doesn't find a route. That's until LND 0.10 was very common. Now it's a little less so, but we still had to make LND a little more optimistic than it is by default, thanks to some recent additions. LND invalidates a channel if it fails a payment for some grace period. So what we did is penalty half-life 5 seconds instead of, I don't know, 4 hours by default or something. Turn off failure verification and set a very high default probability of success. With this, we have like 99% of success on nodes we control. This is what I'll be talking now. We are hosting a massive amount of Lightning nodes for this project because every app has to have its own Lightning node. 1 user equals 1 LND. And how many do you think you can connect of LNDs to 1 Bitcoin D? Actually not that much, because 0MQ was never designed to have more than 1 client connected. And even with tuning the configuration, it's very, very bad. So first way to solve that was to initialize the nodes 1 by 1. When they are synchronizing 1 by 1, it mostly works, but if you have to reboot the server with 100 nodes on it, they will never resync. Oops. So the other way to use LND is with Neutrino. Yeah, Neutrino is great, but there are like 10 public servers for Neutrino on the internet. So, so Neutrino requires the Bitcoin server to run what is called compact filters. You can run BTCD, which I personally don't like, and you can run Bitcoin, not the log-gr fork. Now it's merged into Core. I don't know if it's released already or not, but it's getting merged. But the problem is, yeah, as I said, there are very few Neutrino-enabled nodes in the internet, so we just started running our own. So on each physical box, we have 1 compact filter server and many LNDs. And this mostly works because it synchronizes very fast. It's local on the same machine, so it just uses all the bandwidth. The current features of Sphinx, there are apps for desktop on all the major platforms, as well as an iOS and Android app. What is cool, for example, on iOS, when you connect your phone to the Sphinx server, it stores all the credentials in the keychain, and then you can just open your Mac and use the same. Use the same messages. The messages are encoded in the TLV, which can now be read through the API. There is still a message size limit because of the maximum size of a Lightning payment. We have UTF-8 support and GIFs. You can send payments and payment requests, and you can do paid content. For example, if I have a group chat, I'm a content producer, I want to post a picture and get paid for people watching this picture. I can set a price in Satoshis on the picture and people have to pay before they can see the picture. It's stored on servers which are called meme servers. We have end-to-end encryption. When you first connect to someone, there is a key exchange, so the chat and all the content is encrypted. And there are tribes. Tribes are a special kind of groups. It's like public groups. There is a directory online. You can just scan the QR code to join a group. And they have embedded security, which we suffer from on Telegram every day in our groups with spam. You can set a price to join. You can set a price to send a message. And you can set a price to stake for every message. So when you send a message, your money will be held for a period of time and then released. Of course, this is all optional. If you want a free group, you can do a free group. And we have Patreon-style subscriptions. I'm a podcaster. I want people to pay for premium content. I can have a widget on my website, and people can just scan this widget and subscribe to my content. Or just a free subscription. I have people just sending me automatically money from a Lightning wallet every week, for example, on the app. And yeah, this is a most recent addition. The authentication API and the bots, actually. So anything you would expect from a modern app which creates an identity, it's totally pseudonymous. You can use whatever name you want on it, and even the people who add you on the app can use each person can use a different name for every person, for yourself. And now you can use things to authenticate yourself like you would do with Google Auth or Facebook Auth on other applications and websites. And also there is bot support. It's basically anything that runs with Telegram, you copy paste the code and it will run on things. They also wanted to create a standard for chat and content over Lightning. It's called the Lumo standard. It's unfortunately not used by people like Juggernaut, so the two chat platforms are incompatible with each other. But I'm hoping to see people using at least a part of this standard so we can have other chat apps working with things. We still have some challenges, routing again. Now ABC usually works, ABCD, still some failures. Also, we noticed that when you create a channel, actually the age of the channel influences the probability that it will route payments. We call that channel aging. Usually after 24 hours, a channel becomes really good at forwarding payments. Because it's better known in the Lightning graph. The footprint for the server is still pretty big, mostly CPU, not so much RAM and disk. We are working on reducing it. And until LND 0.11, there was a bug. I think it was introduced in 0.10. I call it the spontaneous channel close, just channels force close for no reason on the node. And yeah, we are in the process of migrating to 0.11, which is supposed to fix that. We have Tor support in iOS and Android. iOS is still not released, but Android is released. So you can connect to your, if you run the Sphinx server on your home node, like a node, for example, you can connect over Tor. And we wanted very much to have all the Lightning nodes running Tor only, but actually that makes them unreliable as fuck, so it's not yet. And yeah, you know what is more scarce than Bitcoin in this world? IPv4s. Yeah, we have a huge problem. A block of 1,000 IPv4s costs $20,000. and there are not many to sell. And basically, you would have to run one node for one IPv4. We are not doing that. We are sharing one IPv4 for 50 LNDs. So if you look at any 1ml.com or any other Lightning Explorer, you will see that all the nodes have like different port numbers because we have a different port number for each node. So the app is obviously used to interact with Stack workers. Already said that. And now about the reasons. We said Paul is into keto and carnivory. And yeah, we can expect in the coming years that things like meat will be heavily taxed. And we need places where the producer will be able to sell directly to the consumer without any intermediaries. And yeah, it can obviously be also used for illegal goods or soon to be illegal goods, legal. And yeah, end-to-end encryption is great for coordinating delivery and just agreeing on a price or something. And yeah, bots, you could basically do an automatic selling shop now in Sphinx, and people just pay, interact with the chat and pay. What really convinced me when he talked about this project first time, he didn't know about this book. Probably remember it. And I think Sphinx is the Gamma communities, which Paul Rosenberg invented. And yeah, I think this is really where we should be going, maybe with other technologies, of course, but this one kind of works now, and you can run it, it's fully open source, you can run it on your own nodes, and the more people will have on the app, the better. Yeah, so this is an example of the donation widget you can do. There is a page to generate widgets. You just enter your info and it automatically generates the nice widget. And yeah, coming soon, app integration for payment and authentication. So you could use Sphinx as a root of trust for your digital identity, just based on your Lightning pub key. And yeah, you can basically do anything requiring privacy and money with this app. And this is Paul's contribution to the talk. He really sees it like a foundation for a new internet based on electronic money. And so, I'll let you read this one because I can't talk about it. I think this is a conclusion for the previous slide. Should never forget that in a place so close to Europe, I mean European Union because it's part of Europe, things like that can still happen in 2020. So if you have any questions.
So thank you for your talk, KETOMINER. So guys, do you have any questions? Please raise your hands. And there are also some questions online. Don't worry to ask folks, even if you're online. KETOMINER, it was really touching with the Belarus. Thank you for that. I feel you. In August, I organized four protests against Belarusian regime, and this is. But what we were talking, oh, there is, so lighting is really early. L&D has so much issues with, so many topics to touch on. I wanted to ask, what's the current development? What challenge are you working on now? What can we expect?
Now the real challenge is scaling the platform, because the the real cost to run each Sphinx node is much higher than the price we are planning to ask people to pay for it. So yeah, we are trying to optimize by any means possible the quantity of LNDs we can stuff on one physical server. And yeah, there is IPv4 issue, but yeah, so it's funny because like crypto and Bitcoin is such an advanced topic, but guys, IPv6, please.
Yes.
It's like IPv6 Bitcoin is close to inexistent.
Do you think maybe Onion would be the, I mean, just because I'm running like whatever much nodes, I don't have any clear IP address. I have only Onion addresses because, I mean, it's easier, and not all of the normal users have public IPs if they have home internet. For example, many ISPs do this thing. So maybe there are issues with Tora. Do you think it could be like everything behind Tora and it could work for
That was the initial plan in Berlin when we spawned the first nodes. They were all running only Tor on the Lightning protocol side. The problem is, so channel opening with ClearNet nodes, of course, you have to connect before they can channel back. And that's half of an issue, but the real issue is there's kind of a segmentation between Tor Lightning and ClearNet Lightning. And basically, when you try to interact between the two, the routing just doesn't work. It's always comes back to the routing issue. We need some, I don't know, the creator of BGP to work on Lightning maybe to fix it, because yeah, the routing, at least in LND, I didn't try other implementations, but at least in LND the routing is fucked up. And way too pessimistic, but that's now fixable by configuration.
Okay, so we have a questions online from Michael. What about using out of band non-IP transports if IPv is a problem? There are some interesting projects using sub-gigahertz similar to LoRa modulation of RF for similar communication applications.
Yeah, I mean, RF for Bitcoin, probably RF for Lightning, it's way too interactive of a protocol. You need to keep synced with the graph. The gossip protocol is very heavy. One thing we are trying to do is like to copy the graph from one node to another to spawn them faster. Maybe we could like make a group of nodes that they will be isolated from the internet and only one node on the outside. That's basically what we are kind of doing, because as you can imagine, the nodes we host, they have all channels to one routing node, which we manage. So we have like this proxy infrastructure and then all the leaf nodes running behind. I mean, we could probably use private channels, at least in this last segment. But this would need a rewrite or a part of the app.
Okay, any physical question? Do we have still have a time for some questions? Folks, yeah. Anybody? So maybe I was thinking there is also some people from NIM today, and do you think maybe on the broader level of issues with Tor and Lightning, do you think maybe NIM could be an answer? I know that you work with Samurai. Samurai also has some collaboration with NIM. Do you think there could be some potential solutions?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Samurai is very anti-Lightning, so not gonna happen. But yeah, we are very heavily Tor. I mean, recently, like Tor is having issues by itself anyway. Like every time I open my wallet, I have to restart my hidden services on the server side because they are just unreachable for any reason. And yeah, last 2 days, miraculously, it worked every time I tried, but like usually I'm restarting Tor every 2 days. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, garlic routing instead of onion routing. I know there is some work happening in this space.
But I love the approach because it's you know, this LMPBP philosophy or the layer link philosophy. That we have another messaging layer and on Lightning basically. So I like the approach. Yeah. So what do you think about other projects like this from this LMPBP sphere, like RGB and what Maxim Orlovsky is doing?
I don't know them enough. I have trouble already keeping up with all the like base layer projects.
Yes.
So yeah,
There's a lot
I'm
of it.
planning to look into RGB soon, probably before the end of the year, but yeah, I didn't work with it yet. Also, one thing we are not doing very much in Bitcoin is using UDP instead of TCP. I will keep it short because it's very boring, but basically, when you transport TCP on top of another TCP session, things get bad because of auto adjustment of the protocols. So yeah, would be better to have like a UDP Tor equivalent in the bottom and then have a TCP session on top of it. That's usually what you do with VPNs. You keep the base layer UDP to avoid these timing issues.
There's online question. Could running Sphinx relay on the routing node pose a problem? How about resource usage?
Resources are very, I mean, it's like the whole package LND plus the Sphinx relay runs on 500 megs of RAM with the full OS and everything. So it's very tiny. I mean, if you already have a Lightning node, adding the Sphinx relay on top is close to zero.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so it will be another software running on my node with BTC Pay and
Yeah, you're just opening another port for the
everything,
API or
yeah.
just a hidden service if you want to use Tor.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Good. Yeah, there's a question.
Hi. At first, thanks for your work. I quite like Sphinx, and even Stack work is pretty cool project. I would like to ask you if you have some strategy how to get a critical mass of users, meaning to be able to continue with the development.
Sorry, I didn't get the first.
Meaning, for example, Haven app and OpenBazaar seems to maybe stop stop working on late. I don't know, but there's possibility. So my question is whether you prevent somehow this, I don't know, if you have a lot of enough funds for the further development, or if you have some strategy how to get the critical mass of users.
The main reason why we don't onboard many users now is still some issues with the onboarding process itself. Like every time we think we are ready, we try to add like 50 users and everything crashes. We are adding like new checks every day to check the status of each node to be sure that it's ready for a user to subscribe. But I mean, I think now the main way to scale up is just having people who run their own LND already to just install the relay and use their own nodes and not the hosted nodes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for our talk. So I have a question. Maybe it's kind of stupid, I don't know. So if you like foresee that something like Paul Rosenberg's gamma market can arise using these technologies, how do we tackle the problem of like sending stuff in the physical space? Like this could be great for in-person trade and like remote services, but just recently I learned my friend got sent some beef liver from Keto Aurelius from United States, and it's basically banned in European Union to receive any meat products from outside of EU. So, do you have any idea like how this could be tackled?
Yeah, so obviously shipping things, especially long distance, is a mess and it's complicated. There's a guy here, I think he's pretty good at drop gangs and stuff. Yeah, long distance is a problem. There's also let's call it onion shipment. Can hop through jurisdictions which are more permissive or through countries which are more permissive. For example, to compare two very close countries, France, you can import almost anything and no one will check if it's under a certain weight and size. And in Luxembourg, if it doesn't have the correct sticker on the device inside the box, they will just keep it until you physically go to the customs office and glue the sticker on the box. So yeah, I mean, that's also why we are shipping the nodos from France, because for 90% of the countries in the world, we go through customs without any payment from our customers. And I know that, for example, if you send the same things from Italy or from Switzerland, we are almost sure that everybody will be paying customs and not on the declared value, but on the perceived value by the customs office.
Maybe I would ask, so you mentioned there is the authentication API in the app for like authenticate things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, is it like compatible? Does it work with LNURL authentication, which is using, so you're using the identity of your node, yeah?
So it's entirely in the Sphinx chat layer. It's not using any LND features.
Yeah, but so because I'm thinking that it would be nice to have it compatible, to have the same identity if I'm using that maybe use it through LNURL and then.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're trying to make it like compatible more like with mainstream things, not Bitcoin world. Yeah, one discussion we had at some point also was like, do we even need in the apps which are using sats as a money backend to call it sats? Or just, I don't know, in Senza, for example, you have some, I don't remember the name of the coin, but obviously it's just a database, it's not a shitcoin. Yeah, it could use sats as a backend for storing the money, but the user of a game or the chat app doesn't need to know that it's using Lightning behind or sats. It can be just Sphinx coin and or token, and yeah, we know that it's using Lightning, and we create adoption, and people will be building apps on top of it. But I mean, the person you meet on the street doesn't need to know anything about that. And I think it's also what will be driving Bitcoin adoption in the future, like is using Bitcoin as a transport layer or as a base layer to build apps, but without calling it.
Yes. Yeah, I love the approach that I don't have to even know what technology is behind it, but it works for me. And yes, are there any other questions from offline or online? We have 3 more minutes. Um,
I can rant more about routing if you want.
Sorry?
I can rant more about Lightning routing.
Yes,
if
please.
you want. Yeah, one thing we've seen recently is like you try to make a payment, it fails, it says no route, but if you do query routes, it succeeds. It gives a success probability of 90%. Like, why? I would love like to be able just to go into the LND database and say like, I know this route is valid. I mean, you can give routing hints, but it's unpractical on the big scale. But like, just assume that it will go through and try sending it instead of failing.
Yes, I have always have this issue when I'm rebalancing channels, and so I find some route, and it is good, but when I execute it and it doesn't go through, and there is one channel which will fail, and yeah.
Yeah, and also if you look at 50 different Lightning nodes, there are no 2 nodes which have the same graph.
Mhm.
It's like they're supposed to know the full graph, but they actually do like 95% of the graph.
Maybe what do you think about privacy on Lightning Network? Or, for example, LND, I was mad at LND because I opened a channel and it did unnecessary input heuristic, just put me there a bunch of coins that I did not needed and destroyed my privacy, you know. So the question is, what do you think about like this privacy layer, maybe some coin control for Lightning, but also general?
So rather on the on-chain wallet of Lightning, or?
Yes. Or I mean, because opening a channels and this merging coins, what can happen is like on-chain privacy, but
Yeah, so now you have PSBT in LND, but it allows you to do some nasty things and mistakes. I'm not a big fan actually of it. Like there was that guy who, so if you go to 1ML, you sort the nodes by channel count. We are on top because of the number of Sphinx nodes. And so people see that and they open channels because we have big nodes with a lot of channels. And one guy opened like a bunch of channels using PSBT, so to open many channels in one transaction, and then he RBF'd it. And actually, when you RBF a channel opening, what happens is the payment goes through, but the receiving node doesn't know which channel to associate it with, so there is no channel and the payment went through. And we had to use some very nasty tool to roll back the transaction, actually send the money back to the guy, because it just stays in limbo. It's not on your on-chain wallet and it's not in a channel. It's like nowhere. So yeah, don't RBF your channel openings.
so and so you mentioned that you were working with LND. No, are you finishing or do have a time? Do I have time? Just last question maybe. That you were working with LND, maybe if you did you pick it or you mentioned LND, but what about C Lightning, Eclair, whatever?
So there was a lot of time invested in LND, but yeah, definitely we will look how to run the same app layer on top of all the implementations. I mean, the Sphinx developers, not me, but yeah, I think something was missing in C Lightning, but it's there now, so we could probably do that. Just one thing I don't like in C Lightning is like the peer ID is a unique key in the C Lightning database, so you can't open 2 channels to the same node, and that's a big problem for us. Maybe Rust Lightning.